My guest today is Marco Shalma, the creator and executive producer of the upcoming documentary Here We Go Again, which delves into the cyclical and cynical nature of anti-Semitism through the lens of a diverse group of activists. The film invites viewers to reflect on the past and present, urging a future where the lessons of resilience and solidarity pave the way for a brighter, more inclusive world. Marco, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. You guys are great, and you guys are doing blessed work, and I'm happy and proud to be part of it.
Yeah, look, I thought, yeah, this is something we need to talk about. It seems to be the sort of film that a lot of people may benefit from watching at the moment, and I'd really like you to tell us more about the film and why you decided to create it.
The whole film started in a weird kind of way. Is the post October 7? I have family in Israel. I'm Israeli, originally, and I have family in Israel. I have two kids that were in the army at the time of October 7, and I've been, the initial shock was so great that it took me about 2 weeks to kind of regain consciousness, I might say. Like my team at my businesses was super helpful, and then jumped in to take over, and really kind of lead the way, giving me some time to breathe. Few weeks into that, once the initial shock kind of wears off, then you start thinking, what can I do, and what's going on, and you're trying to kind of digest the information. And I remember, like, so clear. It was a Tuesday night, like it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I just heard this voice. Here we go again, and it just kind of, it was so clear in my head. So I got up, I went on my little desk, and I started writing. And just a flow of consciousness, just writing some ideas. Later on, I realized it's like I've been writing a treatment for something, and the whole kind of concept came about. Separately for this, I wrote 198, almost 200-page manifesto that is related to my experience leading to this, to this kind of creative sources. I I noticed something there. I knew there's something there. I made some phone calls to some of my friends, who are Jewish filmmakers, and I said, "Listen, I am going to put some money behind this. I want to executive produce this, so I think we have to speak about it. Let's meet up and talk about what's the essence of it. Let's talk about, have the direction of what this film can speak of, and then we'll go on this journey, And that was the initiation of this entire kind of project. And from day one, it was not meant to be anything about, you know, the the actual conflict in the Middle East. This is way too big for us to try and kind of solve in a film, in an hour and a half, 2 hours film. But it was more about, like, the aftermath and the effect of October 8, 9, and 10, when we saw what happens to Jews all over the diaspora, especially in Western countries, where we felt like that we've gone past that moment, and how we feel and how we are, resonate between us. So for me, it was a crazy journey, because I've been living in the United States for almost 25 years, and I've never felt too Israeli in my period of life over here, because I haven't felt that connected to Israel. Because many things, but also because political spaces, and a lot of critique over, like, what's going on over there, and the direction, the right direction that the government has been taking progressively over the years. So I had a lot of issues with that in my stomach, but I've never felt also connected really to the American Jew experience, and the first time in my life when I felt it like connected to my clan, to my people, was through this horrific time, and this is something that's common to a lot of us. What happens in October 7th, and the aftermath of that, when the two worlds, Jews in the Gola, in outside of Israel, and Israeli Jews just became connected. And that was the first time that I felt, okay, I have a place over here, but I also have a unique perspective that we can kind of bring into a film like that, and be clear minded. Not not be like, pro something or against something else. It was be like more talking in a place of like consciousness about like how ridiculous this whole thing is, and how, the way that we see it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important narrative to tell because the aftermath, this global spike in anti-Semitism, has been devastating for Jews across the world. I mean, in London, within the month of October 2023, the London Metropolitan Police said anti-Semitism rose 1,350%, which is an astronomical figure. So, so I think that a film focusing on this is pretty important. How has the creation process been making a film about anti-Semitism? Has that been difficult? Has it been in some ways cathartic?
It actually has not been so difficult because the response has been overwhelmingly positive, across the board from like the subject of the people that we wanted. I don't think there's a lot of people that we wanted to talk to that we weren't able to get to, you know, and that was very helpful. I put a lot of the initial money and then we got some investment. So like that, in that aspect, that was great. I think like really the the more challenging thing was finding the story and how to own in on the story. Is there a story? Is the story is too big for us, to talk about? And obviously the answer is yes, yes, it's too big for us to kind of try and solve or discuss. So the idea was like to try and figure out what it is that we want to talk about. And then the people that we start talking about is initially we went to people that are activists, what we call the accidental Jewish activists. And Jewish in this matter doesn't mean Jewish like for the Jewish descent. Could be like Richie Torres, who is not Jewish, but he is a Jewish activist for the Jewish people, right? So the idea was to kind of explore that dimension and slowly learn more and more and more, what it is that we're getting into. Because I'm not gonna lie, this all started like in some of it was therapeutical, some of it was for us, the team behind this movie, to kind of, see, hey, is everybody feeling the way that we do? Is there like a consensus in the Jewish community, which was very clear and very fast? Yes, it is a consensus. The way we feel is the way that everybody feels. And then, okay, so what can we do about it? So that's also aspect of the film initially was like, wait, I want to learn what are other people doing? How are you dealing with the situation right now, mentally, physically, and what do you think we should go and do? And that's why the film has a range of, from philosophers to scholars to thinkers to writers to celebrity, and to business owner, and it really was to kind of identify what people are thinking and what they want, what they seen, and how they are responding to that. And it has been a learning process of wow. Like my mind is just like I am. I learned so many things that I did not even recognize or realize. So
Yeah.
the process has been great because we kept learning things and we kept connecting with cool people and we kept understanding more and more about our people in a way. You know what I mean? And that was
Yeah.
very surprising as well.
Yeah, and I think when people watch your film, there's going to be a lot of famous faces that they recognize, which will be cool for them. And I kind of like that term you use, accidental Jewish activists, because you're right. A lot of these people never intended to go into this; they just felt like I can't not say anything. And a lot of these people, your viewers may recognize from our podcast. We've had a lot of your guests on as our guests. So we've had actor Brett Gelman, writer Eve Barlow, Dr. Sheila Nazarian. We've had Representative Richie Torres. Let me ask you, when speaking with such a diverse array of activists, did you leave this filming process having your perspective changed at all?
That's a great question, because I think I've my my mindset and my process and my perspective have changed a couple of times. You know, I we kept seeing new aspects of what's happening. And in the first place, you we got into that from a place of hurt, from a place of like, why is it happening to us? And then we find those people that spoke to that. Why is it happening to us? And then we realize that we don't want to just stick around in like the echo chambers, because sometimes social media can be like, it's a for you page, it's algorithm that is designed to you, so that becomes like this whole little community. There's nobody listen from the outside, and the outside is people that think differently or are conditioned to believe to other perspectives. So then we start looking for people that can kind of give a broader perspective on that, on the subject. Why? Because we wanted to also make sure that the audience is not going to be limited to the 14 point something million Jews around the world, because it's important to get beyond that. So it evolved, and I don't know if it's got anything connected to like the stages of grief or whatnot. It could be, because I need to kind of give it a better look, but it's definitely start changing a little bit its flavor as we learn more about things, and as we became more educated and more involved and more immersed in the content.
Yeah, yeah, it's an evolution, and I get that. You mentioned your audience a moment ago. What are you hoping that your audience will take away from this film?
I think what we really want to is for the Jewish audience to take the resilience aspect and the strength aspect, and knowing that, like, no more this weakling Jews that people kind of look at, or just they trying to portray as from like Bolshevik propaganda from 1900 or something like that. We want to have like that uplifting moment, that we know that like we all feel the same, and we are all ready to fight for the survival of the Jewish people. And on the other aspect, it is important for us to kind of reach out to the allies, to those like the silent majority, and says, "Hey, wake up, so we don't have to go through. We sorry this has happened to you again." But this is the first time when I felt like an insatiable need to be part of it, something, to really kind of put my you know my mind and my personality into it as well, in understanding, because I felt like I have a very unique perspective of things, being Israeli and American Jew, like 20 years and 20 years of experiencing both, what I mean? So, and, it gave me a perspective of like, wait, this is what people don't know, and this is what people don't know on this side, and trying to make sense of it all in a world that doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. What has been something that surprised you when you got to America and you realized, hang on, why don't they know this?
There's been a long history of Israelis and in the United States, and then not only in the United States, in like the diaspora, especially more Western countries. The Israelis, because of the nature, they coming from like a desert country, a little bit more simple, like people of the land or stuff like that, going into like places where Jews has been around for like over a century. There's been a little bit of a clash of attitude. A few Israelis, we're not known for our subtlety and our manners. You know what I mean? We more, when you need a brush, aggressive, fast spoken Jew. You're not getting a gentleman, a Jewish gentleman from London. You're gonna call the guy from Tel Aviv, right? So so this is what we're known for, and then it's never been it wasn't until like last couple of years that it kind of clicked in America with the American Jews, and you could see like clicks, like Israeli stick with himself and Jews stick with himself. You kind of it's almost like the in high school when you like, or you nod your head because you're the same people, but you're not really engaging,
Yeah.
you know so that's the sense of the feeling. But like, I had a little bit of a full stomach on both sides, so I was just like neglected, so I appreciate this journey because it's puts me in a place when I feel um, a little bit more comfortable. Listen, if you've been to New York, look at me. I'm pretty much look like a Spanish guy, like a Caribbean Spanish guy, Puerto Rican, Dominican, which kind of is helpful in a way, like when there's a crazy anti-Semitic kind of antics going around in the street. I'm not the first one to kind of be
Right.
pointed finger at. But I think like what it also gives me, and this is the Israeli part of me, that my friends, a lot of my friends, throughout the first couple months, who just first of all still was digesting the October 7th, the horrific October 7th, but like really, And I'm not downsizing October 7th, but really what really is like was the most insane is like the celebration starting on October 8th worldwide, Australia, London, Sydney, London, New York, and the celebration and the fact that the Jews were not even allowed to mourn the loss of their people. I often think about it and I say that, like, imagine if the world just stopped for a second, like any other big situation, and just mourn for a second and just kind of really focus on that horrible kind of situation. We might not be in the situation that we are right now. We might have, like, it might have turned completely different, but we were not allowed to mourn our people. And then immediately there was just an attack on all of us, you know? And my friends over here in the States, a lot of them, like male and female, like, I know that, like, because of my 6'2", 260 pound, aggressive Israeli kind of looking dude, that I became like almost like their safety net, almost like they're like, don't worry, this is gonna be okay. We will fight. We will come out of this. Don't pay attention to that. Almost took a stance of somewhat of a leadership to kind of tell everybody, okay, relax. We got this together, and I think like the movie just became a continuation of that for me, from like DMs with like 30, 40 different people on a daily base, exchanging information and also talking about, people tell me like, I'm afraid to walk around in the street. I said, well, if you need, let me know. I'll come. If you need to do this, I'll come. I'll send somebody. I'll do this. And I'm glad we went through that phase, but I was wrong because I thought this is gonna get. I thought this is gonna end up like in a 3, 4 months, and
Yeah,
then I thought it's gonna end up in June when the election is gonna start, and it's now winding down,
yeah, yeah.
and the movie right now is in post production, uh, but I already know that I have to go and film in August a few more bits, a little bit round tables. There's a few more people that I'm interviewing, like Michael Rappaport and Professor Gad Saad and some of other people that like are that for me speaks in a different kind of way. That this is why I was insistent of having some voices like Sheila Nazarian, because
Yeah.
she represents a different kind of voice. Somebody who also lived multiple Jewish experiences, the Persian experience of exclusion and expulsion, and then the American experience, So, and that's why I urge a lot of the people to understand and to kind of put, especially like somebody like Shai Davidai, who is also in the movie, and he kind of represents the understanding of like what is to be Israeli and what is to be Jewish American, what is to be like a professor but also an ex-military in Israeli in the IDF, you know those are the connection. Those are what we found. Those are the ones that kind of will might help us find the path to understand better.
When can um, when can people expect to see the movie?
That's like the $1 million question, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you've probably been asked it a lot.
No, no, no. I mean, listen. I'm trying. We really. My goal was to kind of release it the Saturday, October 5th, or right before the October 7th anniversary.
Yeah,
I wanted to kind of be able to do that, just to kind of send a message of hope. But I feel that this film needs to be seen by our allies. Needs to be seen by those we can have a conversation with. That we can't have conversation with, we just can't. You know what I mean? It's just like we're gonna have to accept the fact that these people will not be swayed until their, excuse my language, ass is gonna be on the line for some this or any other reason. So we have to focus on the silent majority, those who can identify that whatever is happening right now with the Jews is not. It is the canary in the coal mine. This is like the thing. And on that note, when we talked about earlier about the evolution and of the creative and the process and the perspective, I think in the last couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, I've been kind of going, very intellectually, or what I call brutallectually, which is a combination of the brute and the intellectual. Which is the nature of Israeli. If I say that, I'm coining it right now. Uh,
it's a Marco original.
So it is an original. I thought for a second, for a couple of weeks ago, I started thinking about the idea like of like, and I realized that I made a mistake, a small mistake when it comes to like the idea of like here we go again, being the cynical and cyclical nature of anti-Semitism and Jewish people and Jewish nation, and I realized that there's a bigger what's going on in the world. This is after talking to like Dara On, the scholar, and reading stuff from Gad Saad and whatever. That I realized that here we go again is not just about the Jews. The Jews are the canary in the coal mine of like a change, a global change, a global order change. The world as we know it is no longer will no longer exist. Is gone, and there's a new world. It's like the shift in economic, in the economies, the shift in the social justice element, the shift in power and governing. There's a big change is happening, and Jews has always been the canary, in the coal mine when it comes to changes, whether it's like Bolshevik Russia or whether it's like Nazi Germany or like the end of like previous like 18th century. And this is what I realized that here we go again. It's not about that. It's not a hyper focus about the Jewish people. It's about we're about to witness a massive shift in the world that we know it. It's scary, but like, hey, you know, we're here. Give me some
Yeah.
popcorn.
Switching gears now for a second, let me ask you about your main line of work, which involves events and hospitality. You're the founder of Mask Hospitality, which produces night markets throughout New York City. It sounds very exciting. Can you tell us a bit more about your ventures?
Absolutely. Uh, Thank you for asking about that. Mass hospitality and the night market, night market NYC, which is includes like multiple different kind of brands within it. Uh, Started off as a hobby. I call it the little hobby that took over. It's started off because I at in 2013, one of my companies, the media company, we were based in the Bronx for like, and then for like 3-4 years, and at that time, the Bronx had a very, I don't want to say a food desert, but it was like, I had very limited options of cuisines comparing to Manhattan, where you can find anything that you want in an arm's reach, right? And one of the things that a partner of mine discussed, hey, there's some food festival going on right there in Brooklyn. Why don't we do something like this in the Bronx and just make sure that once a month, at least we're going to come and eat real good, you know? So we did that, but because I have a marketing company, I we had over 12,000 people show up to the first date, and I'm like, and then the business mind came in to say, this could be a thing. So we continued doing that for a few years and really kind of got the hang of what it is, and from day one we incorporated like supreme, aesthetic and design and media ideas and videos and whatnot. And again, all thanks to Marco Shalma having a media company. So it was a lot easier because it didn't cost me per se, money to do and to generate that, and it was a fun little project. And then it felt after a couple of years, it felt like the pandemic hit, or right before the pandemic, we start thinking about expanding. And the pandemic hit, we were the only one open in the entire New York State under like severe regulation, 80 pages of like restriction or whatnot. But we did, and then it became like for us, it became like the big catalyst of expansion. Ever since that moment, we grew from one night market into seven nowadays, plus other like small little kind of businesses and events. And then uh, right now, pretty much cornering the market of the night markets. Like we are identified as the night market people. Literally, they call me the night market person. Even though we do a lot of other things, but I get to eat the best food in New York on a regular basis. And that makes me happy. The concept of that, and listen, it's made me money. That money that helps me do the film and other project as well, and support other creators, and that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, one of the reasons that we wanted to do these things is because of the idea of like global cuisine. Like we the main line is like this: once you eat a different nation's food, you can't really hate on them. You know what I mean? You can't just hate on Mexican after you eat and enjoy Mexican food. You know, you can't hate, anybody like that, like Albanians. Oh my God, I'm trying some burek or this or that. You can't just like, it's 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 opening a small door of acceptance, and becoming like a global village through food, which we all freaking love. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what the success and realizing that from the beginning was detrimental for how fast we grew as a company and how we were able to really reach so many people, like 350,000 people in our mailing list at any given time. Like our events are being frequented by, five to 25,000 people on a regular basis. It was funny. I think it was like what 20 right after the pandemic, 2022. I mean, right after the pandemic is debate who was saying that. For me, it was 2021. Right after the pandemic, but for other people, it's 2023 was like still going on. But around 22, 23, we were thinking about doing. We wanted to do like in collaboration with a few Jewish organization, like a big Jewish food festival called the
Nice.
Schmearfest.
Nice. Yeah.
And we really wanted to do that. And I think like we should have done it because maybe people would have known the Jewish food a little bit more and become more tolerant. So I'll take that responsibility of not making people more tolerant at this point. But we really wanted to do like combine like Montreal, Canada, and New York, New Jersey, and create the Schmearfest. When there's so much Israeli and Jewish food around that is like so good. Uh, Never came about. I think it's that idea is dead for now. Maybe I'll resurrect it in about 10 years. Once we passed it, we look back and see this like horrible period of time. Hopefully, but yeah, that's us.
All right. So let me ask you this, and it may be a difficult question. If someone goes to one of your night markets, they have 30 minutes to spare. What is the one stall? What one type of food are you saying you got to try this?
You cannot pay me enough to answer that question. Like there's literally like, I've been asked this question so many times, but like people are trying to come, nah, but really, no. I tell you this much, man. I would say like this. I consider myself as a food, connoisseur, foodie. I worked in restaurants in my past. I know how to cook. I cook very well. We don't accept people that don't have quality products within their niche. We like the traditional food, but we also like the people that innovate within that space. And every food item that comes to our markets, I co-sign. And I know that the people stands behind the food are great, and they are ready to kind of go ahead and explore, and expose themselves to like the thousand and thousand of people that we bring. But also their food is legit, it's clean, it's sizable, because for us in the demographic that we work, we want to make sure that like this is not a finger food tasting kind of menu. We want you to have a good experience, and like it's a eaters kind of festival, not like a foodie festival.
Yeah. Yes, I do. All right. Well, if I'm ever in New York, I'll be sure to check it out.
Oh,
Um,
please, man.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you a question now that I ask all of the guests on this podcast. If someone who is not Jewish comes to you and says, I want to help in the fight against anti Semitism, where should they start?
That's a great question, man. If someone who is not Jewish comes to me and says they want to help, how should I start? Based on stuff that we've done, based on the interview that we've done, I think that what's been the most effective to people is for non-Jews to go around and see within their circles, where are the misconceptions, where are those trigger points. I think like from what I've seen is like those conversation and those disputing of those conversation, but you know it is honestly, listen, it is $1 million question, man, because like as the storyteller in me says like tell good stories about experiences that you had. You know, that's me saying that. That's me saying that. But but uh, the naive person in me, the humane person in me says like, go and advocate for us. Go and advocate for us. Talk to those people. Try and change their mind. But like, really is, I think the storytelling. I think that's what it is because it all comes down to narrative. Tell a story about an experience that you have. Tell a story why do you feel that this is wrong. Tell a story why, and I think through those narratives we'll be able to kind of tell a bigger story because it is very challenging right now because you can't there's no conversation because I just feel like that, like, that open the door and give and tells stories and narrative from people that could be allies so they will wake up to the conversation, and like I mentioned earlier, like, the canary in the coal mine, like, you know the, we need to we all need to understand the severity of the situation. It is a critical situation and it's just getting worse. You've seen over the past 9 months, it just we are every time we think like they can go worse, it does. So we need people to wake up, and most of that silent majority, which I mentioned a few times, they will not step into the battle if we say that because they don't want to be in the mix of that. But when other people like them wake them up into reality and the possible consequences and the fact that they cannot ignore action, and you remember this, the science, the sentence that uh, people use so far, like silence is is complicity, or whatever. Like, like this is the one that we need to remind it right now. It's like you can't be silenced no more. And I think that's where the allies, those who want to help, that's what they can help the most because they will be heard more. Because when you don't have a stake in the game and you put yourself in the line, you know other people will follow because they understand that it is an important thing. Because us, of course, we're going to put ourselves in the line. We are experiencing it. This is our life. So it's not an even situation. But if you're an ally and you do that to another ally, will say like, okay, well, this person is doing that because he has no skin in the game. But I think he sees something bigger than that. Let me hear that story, and the story tells, okay, let's not go back to 1950 something when we all look back on the Holocaust and minus 6 million Jews and 6 million others.
Before we wrap up, please remind the listeners, what have you got going on? What have you got coming up? And where can people find you?
So right now we are in post production for the Here We Go Again film. Very excited to share it with the world in the next few months. We are really working hectically on that. We started a new project that's called Voices in the Library, which was inspired by something that we saw back in Columbia University. It's a narrative, short 30 minutes that we are writing right now. We are finishing the writing and we'll go into pre-production in the next couple of weeks. And that's just like it's just intense story of like those kids that got locked got pushed into the library and they locked the door and there was a big riot outside of that. So that was inspired by that. In addition, we are working right now with like a really, I can't tell too much, but a really major celebrity through the film that we created into making a new a 4 to 6 limited series about his interactions and his experience and his story coming into Jewishness and understanding that, but also then fighting literally with with what's ever happening around there. I'll give more about it in the next couple of weeks. But this is like, if anybody follows us, that's at Here We Go Again film. I am at Marco Shalma, MARCOSHALMA, and just follow us, track us. You'll see there's a lot of good stuff coming up right now.
All right. Marco Shalma, thank you very much for coming on Podcast Against Antisemitism.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks for having me, man. And really, you guys are doing fantastic. And let's just keep pushing those narratives. Let's please show the world, continue showing the world, like there's like, yes, they are wrong. This is wrong. And I appreciate you. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thank you.